You've been drinking something that isn't quite beer. 8 major brands sold across every Tesco, Sainsbury's, and pub in Britain contain ingredients that would be illegal in Germany. Some have been secretly watered down while you paid full price. But what we uncovered next was even worse. Every week, millions of British shoppers reach for their usual lager without a second thought. The label looks familiar. The price feels right. The brand promises quality, but between the marketing and the pint glass sits a truth most people never discover. UK beer regulations allow additives, adjuncts, and processing methods that traditional brewing nations would never permit. This investigation reveals which brands have replaced authentic ingredients with cheaper alternatives, which have quietly reduced alcohol content while maintaining prices, and what you're actually consuming when you think you're drinking beer. British beer culture runs deep. From corner pubs to supermarket aisles, lager dominates our drinking habits. We trust the brands we grew up with, the ones advertised during football matches, the ones everyone orders without thinking. That trust is precisely what makes this story so troubling. Germany's Reinheitsgebot, the beer purity law from 1516, restricts lager to 4 ingredients: water, malted barley, hops, and yeast. Nothing else. German brewers have maintained this standard for over 500 years. Britain has no equivalent law. UK regulations permit glucose syrup, corn, rice, chemical hop extracts, caramel coloring, and dozens of processing aids that never appear on labels. What looks like beer, tastes vaguely like beer, and sells as beer might contain far less of what you'd expect and far more of what you'd never choose. The first warning signs appeared in the ingredient lists. Traditional beer requires malted barley for fermentation. Mass-produced UK lagers increasingly list glucose syrup, maize, or rice. These adjuncts are cheaper than malt and produce higher alcohol yields, but they also create thinner body and less flavor. Brewers compensate with chemical hop extracts rather than whole hops and stabilizers to maintain artificial head retention. Then came the alcohol reductions. Between 2010 and 2020, major brands systematically lowered their ABV, sometimes by over 15%. Lower alcohol means lower duty payments. The savings never reached consumers. Prices remained identical or increased. You've been paying premium rates for progressively weaker beer. UK labeling regulations contain a critical loophole. Ingredients used during processing, such as isinglass for fining, don't require disclosure. These processing aids remain in the final product at trace levels. Fish-derived isinglass appears in numerous vegetarian-marketed beers without warning. Similarly, caramel coloring, often containing 4-methylimidazole, enhances appearance but carries health concerns that German brewers would never accept. Independent laboratory testing has detected glyphosate residues in virtually every major commercial lager tested. Glyphosate, a herbicide sprayed on grain crops, appears at measurable levels in the finished beer. The WHO classifies it as a probable human carcinogen. It disrupts gut bacteria at extremely low concentrations. Every pint delivers a dose. But the most shocking findings were still ahead. The truth about Britain's most popular lagers reveals a pattern of systematic ingredient substitution, misleading marketing, and regulatory gaps that favor corporate profits over consumer transparency. Carling holds Britain's top lager position through volume, not quality. In 2012, Molson Coors reduced Carling's alcohol content from 4% to 3.7% to reduce duty payments. They kept the label showing 4% for years. HMRC claimed over £50 million in unpaid duty. When challenged in court, a company vice president admitted they deliberately avoided updating labels to prevent customers demanding refunds. You paid full price for watered-down beer, while the company pocketed the difference. The current formula contains glucose syrup, replacing traditional malt, producing the thin, flavorless body regular drinkers have noticed. Independent testing detected glyphosate residue throughout virtually every batch tested. Foster's markets itself as authentically Australian. It's brewed in Manchester. The UK is Foster's largest global market. Actual Australians rarely drink it, preferring Victoria Bitter or Carlton Draught. Foster's faced class action lawsuits in America from consumers deceived by decades of Outback imagery and kangaroo marketing. UK Foster's contains water, malted barley, glucose syrup, barley, hops, and hop extract. The UK version runs at 3.7 to 4% ABV, weaker than the percent Americans receive. You're paying for fake Australian heritage, glucose syrup adjuncts, processed hop chemicals, and a weaker product than other nations. Stella Artois positions itself as premium Belgian lager. Your Stella comes from Salisbury in Lancashire or Magor in Wales. Original Belgian Stella runs at 5.2% ABV. The UK version dropped to 5.0% in 2007, 4.8% in 2012, and 4.6% in 2020. That's a 12% reduction in alcohol content, while prices remained premium. The bitterness reportedly dropped from 33 IBU to just 20 between 1973 and 2014. Stella contains maize, a cheap adjunct traditional brewers would reject. Every aluminium can comes with BPA lining. Bisphenol A is an established endocrine disruptor mimicking estrogen in your body, linked to fertility problems, obesity, and cancer. The EU reduced its safe exposure level by 20,000 times in 2023 and banned BPA in food contact materials from January 2025. The UK kept the old 2015 standard. Budweiser contains approximately 30% rice. Anheuser-Busch is America's largest rice buyer specifically for brewing. Rice dilutes beer to cut costs while charging premium prices. They advertise the rice as a feature. The beechwood aging they market heavily involves boiling beechwood chips in baking soda, removing all flavor. It's pure marketing theater. Your Budweiser comes from the same UK facilities as Stella, carrying identical glyphosate contamination. Testing found Budweiser at 27 parts per billion for glyphosate. The rice they use is genetically modified. Kronenbourg comes from Manchester and Northampton, not France. Original French Kronenbourg runs at 5.5% ABV. The UK version has been slashed to 4.6%, nearly 16% weaker than what French consumers receive for the same brand. Kronenbourg uses isinglass for fining, collagen extracted from fish swim bladders to clarify beer. UK labeling laws classify this as a processing aid, not an ingredient, so they don't have to disclose it. If you're vegetarian, vegan, or have fish allergies, you've been drinking fish derivatives without warning. The beer also contains glucose syrup as an adjunct. These aren't isolated incidents. They represent an industry-wide shift toward cost reduction, masked by brand heritage, premium positioning, and regulatory loopholes that protect corporate interests over consumer awareness. Every major brand follows a similar pattern. Reduce alcohol content, substitute cheaper ingredients, maintain premium pricing, and rely on consumer habits rather than quality to drive sales. Birra Moretti markets Italian heritage from 1859. It's brewed in Manchester at the same Royal Brewery producing Foster's. The original Italian brewery in Udine was sold off in 1997, but marketing kept all the Mediterranean authenticity. The mustachioed man on the label, the Italian imagery, the premium positioning, all carefully crafted nostalgia. You're drinking water, malted barley, maize, and hop extracts. Manchester with a moustache. Carlsberg has undergone the most aggressive drinkflation in the industry. Originally 4.0% ABV, they've reduced it to just 3.4%, the lowest strength of any major branded lager. That's a 15% alcohol reduction, while keeping prices identical, saving roughly 6p per pint in duty across millions of barrels annually. It carries all the same concerns. Caramel coloring, containing 4-methylimidazole, BPA can linings, glyphosate residue, and acetaldehyde from fermentation, classified as a Group 1 definitive human carcinogen by the WHO. Corona's clear bottle is iconic for marketing but terrible for quality. Light penetration creates free radicals and degrades the liquid. The lime wedge tradition exists because the beer's flavor needs masking. You're paying import prices for chemical stabilizers and a product that degrades in its own bottle. Walk into any Tesco, Sainsbury's, Aldi, or Lidl, and the same brands dominate the chiller cabinets. They're positioned at eye level, featured in meal deals, and promoted heavily. Most shoppers reach for what's familiar without questioning what's inside. That habitual purchasing is exactly what these brands depend upon. The health implications accumulate over time. Glyphosate disrupts gut microbiome at extremely low concentrations. BPA exposure from aluminum cans affects hormonal function. Acetaldehyde accumulates with regular consumption. Glucose syrup and corn adjuncts provide empty calories without nutritional benefit. None of these concerns appear in advertising campaigns featuring beaches, football matches, and good times with friends. The financial impact is equally troubling. You're paying premium prices for progressively weaker beer made with cheaper ingredients. When Stella dropped from 5.2% to 4.6%, you received 12% less alcohol for the same money. When Carlsberg reduced strength to 3.4%, you got the weakest major lager at unchanged prices. These aren't small differences. Over a year of regular consumption, that represents significant money paid for water. What should you do? Start reading labels properly. Check the country of brewing, not just the brand heritage. Compare ABV against the brand's original strength. Look for organic certification logos. Avoid clear bottles. Ask questions at pubs about cask versus keg and line cleaning schedules. Most importantly, recognize that familiar brands don't always deliver quality. Sometimes they deliver precisely the opposite. 4 corporations control almost every lager brand in Britain. They've systematically reduced alcohol content while maintaining prices. They've replaced traditional ingredients with cheap adjuncts and synthetic additives. They've marketed Manchester beer as Australian, Italian, and French. UK regulations permit all of it. The biggest revelation isn't that one brand deceived consumers. It's that the entire industry operates this way. The brands you grew up trusting have fundamentally changed what they sell you while keeping everything else, the labels, the marketing, the prices, exactly the same. German brewers have maintained beer purity for 500 years. British corporations abandoned it the moment it became financially convenient. Now you know. Now you can choose differently. Which brand on this list surprised you the most? Have you noticed these products in your local Tesco, Sainsbury's, or Aldi? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation matters. Share this with anyone who deserves to know what's really in their pint. We uncover the hidden truths behind everyday UK foods and drinks, one investigation at a time. If you found this valuable, subscribe to the channel. There's more to discover about what you're actually buying, and we're just getting started. Thanks for watching.